Hello, welcome to my channel, KC. That's me, Carrie Chug, the Sledge Storyteller. And I'm going to stay with the Christmas focus, as you can tell. And last week I talked about the movies and specials. And what I also always look forward to every Christmas is to see what TV series have to offer in the realm of having Christmas episodes. Some good, some not so good. But here and today I want to talk about the top 10 Christmas episodes for TV series. We'll see how that lines up. And, here, I admit, I got a lot of obscure titles, but maybe it's time that we don't go over so many of the usual ones. But anyway, here, number 10, Highway to Heaven, another song for Christmas. So, Highway to Heaven, it was an 80s series that had Michael Landon as an angel named Jonathan Smith, with his sidekick Mark Gordon, played by Victor French. That they worked together on Little House on the Prairie. And here it's a Christmas Carol adaptation, unlike most, because here the Scrooge character, instead of indifference to Christmas, he plays out a phony Christmas spirit, and the attitude that he's trying to spread joy everywhere. Knowing that that's a good front for business. But here it's Jeffrey Owens playing Honest Eddie, a used car salesman, and okay, that's low-hanging fruit in terms of crooked character types. But here he starts out by swindling an elderly couple into a car purchase that he knows they can't afford, and then gives the cold shoulder to a man running an orphanage who was hoping for donations. And then when his newly hired mechanic Dave Ratchet, and not so subtle Bob Cratchit parallel, but he asks for an advance on his wages so that he can buy Christmas for his family after being out of work for so long. And Eddie, he says yes, but he rolls. The deal is he'll get that advance if he rolls back the odometers on the new cars that have just come in. So he refuses because that's illegal, and he gets fired. So that night, after all those examples of being a jerk, what feels like the Jacob Marley moment of this Christmas episode, Honest Eddie, he lies in bed asleep. Then suddenly the TV comes on in front of his bed, and it's playing out one of his commercials where he makes some empty promises. And then Jonathan the angel comes on screen to wake Eddie up and call him out on his deception and greed. But after Eddie turns the TV off, Jonathan, he comes into the room to start that phase of Christmas past where Eddie, he'll see himself as a little boy at Christmas time in a poor family raised by his grandmother. And that little boy, Eddie, gets the ultimate surprise when his grandmother brings him a bike that she had to scrimp and save to get for him. And Eddie then remembers that was the last time he felt love, because she died shortly after. And he ends up in an orphanage, as he tells the story. Grew up in the school of hard knocks, but that kind of brought him to be the type that would swindle and get game however he could. But we move on to Christmas Present, and the sidekick Mark, he's the ghost of Christmas Present, and he takes Eddie to the local orphanage that he had previously turned down for any donations. And we learn there from Eddie's lawyer, who is on the scene, that Eddie managed to secure the orphanage's lot, and it was so that they could wreck it down and expand the used car lot. But the order was that it was to be evacuated that day, Christmas Day. And from there, Eddie's taken to Dave Ratchet's house to witness his kids getting their Christmas presents that have been purchased by their meager income. And of course, there needs to be a Tiny Tim here, and that's Bobby with an undisclosed condition that requires an operation that they can't afford, and Bobby will not live to see the next Christmas without it. But that's the end of Christmas Present. Move on to the future, and it goes straight to the cemetery scene. That plays out the same way it did for Scrooge. And of course, Eddie, from there, he mends his ways and he reconciles with the elderly couple he had swindled earlier on. Also, he reconciles with the orphanage, and of course, he reconciles with Dave Ratchet and promises to help out Bobby. But Jeffrey Lewis, he beautifully plays out the Scrooge, the heartless Scrooge, and later the kind Scrooge type, with wonderful charm throughout. And while the logic and all the outlying circumstances, it gets flimsy at times, we kind of come to expect that with some Christmas, because it's hard to stay in theme without doing that, but it works. Number 9, Christmas Eve on Sesame Street. So in 1978, Sesame Street managed to get itself a special Christmas program aired on CBS, and they came up with something that made it something special for the whole family to sit down to and watch that evening. It has various fun bits with the general Sesame Street characters lineup, but there are 2 key stories that play out. First, there's Big Bird getting told by the mean Oscar that it would be impossible for fat Santa Claus to make it down the typical narrow chimney. So suddenly Big Bird, he's in crisis, and he fears Santa won't be able to make the deliveries for Christmas. So he goes out looking for answers, first by talking to Kermit the Frog, not yet exclusive to the Muppets. He was part of Sesame Street as well during this time. But Big Bird, he can't find satisfactory answers. So on Christmas Eve, he goes to the rooftop, waiting for Santa to arrive, nearly freezes to death, but eventually he does get placated by the human characters of Sesame Street. You know, it works. And it might have been, who knows, that children might have had that same concern, so this was a good thing that played out for that. Second, we get a very well played adaptation of The Gift of Magi, that story, done between Ernie and Bert, and it was well done by the now much missed character of Mr. Hooper, who plays a significant role on that. But it shows the special. It has plenty of things that will engage kids, and plenty to give all ages a warm Christmas theme. And if you haven't seen it, or if it's been a while, give it another look. Number 8, John Denver and the Muppets, a Christmas Together. So more here from Kermit the Frog. John Denver was unique with his popularity because he was, he was kind of a unique performer when it came to country folk. And he got places in his career during this time in the late 70s with record sales for the RCA company and several movie roles and things like this. But he brought a lot of charisma to the special episode of the Muppets, where he had wonderful chemistry in his interactions with the Muppets and wonderful performances that were fun, funny, and heartfelt. Plenty of well-known Christmas songs, a few obscure but timeless songs, and some pretty good songs written just for that show. So check it out. Number 7, Simpsons Christmas Special, aka Simpsons Roasting on an Open Fire. So, after 2 years of being only on the Tracy Ullman Show in segments and appearing on Butterfinger commercials, this was actually the pilot of the Simpsons series, and they did a great job in this episode fleshing these characters out for those who had never watched Tracy Ullman. And here, the Simpson family, they were making their plans to go Christmas shopping and to use the cash saved in the jar to buy Christmas presents for Bart, Lisa, and Maggie, while also expecting Homer to get a nice Christmas bonus. And when Bart has to get a tattoo removed, Marge, she has to use that nest egg money to pay for the removal, while resting her expectations on Homer's Christmas bonus. But Mr. Burns makes the harsh announcement of no Christmas bonus. So Homer's next step is to earn Christmas money by working as a mall Santa. That gets him a paycheck of $13. So the solution to that, bet it all on a dog race, and that a dog named Santa's Little Helper, that's the surefire omen of which dog to bet on, and he comes in last. So, and he becomes the Simpsons family dog. But in these circumstances, we can appreciate what transpires as the family has to dig deeper to find meaning in the Christmas season. And the resolution is played out beautifully, as also the comedy, all the misfortunes that the Simpsons deal with. And if you have Disney Plus, it's waiting for you to select and enjoy as part of your Christmas season. Number 6, MASH, Death Takes a Holiday. So here the doctors and nurses of the MASH 407th during the Korean War are preparing Christmas when they find out that there's a local orphanage in need of their help. And the usually upper crust, arrogant Major Charles Emerson Winchester III drives to the orphanage himself to donate a box of high-quality chocolate. Very generous, and it's a special treat for those orphans. But what transpires from that is he finds that Major Winchester has to humble himself for what was done with that. It didn't go the way he wanted, and that he could know of the good he did in an indirect fashion that really helped those orphanages. That was something to warm the heart. The heavier part of the story is a dying soldier brought to the MASH, who needs immediate attention, only to be ruled brain dead upon arrival. But Hawkeye Pierce, B.J. Honeycutt, and Major Houlihan, they take the initiative to do everything they can to keep his body functioning long enough that his death day will not be on Christmas. That it becomes something that their family has to mourn every Christmas day. And you totally feel the drive of these three medical workers involved, and you root for them every step of the way. And it's a Christmas episode that will pull, not yank, at your heartstrings. Number 5, Amazing Stories, Santa 85. Amazing Stories, it came out in 1985 in the same vein as the Twilight Zone. And if you haven't heard of it and want a good reason to look at it, here you go. And it's available for free on the free NBC app. But this episode stars the same actor playing Santa who had played him on Ernest Saves Christmas, Douglas Seal. But here he makes his usual Christmas Eve launch as Santa to deliver presents, while we learn this everyday family where the parents are working to get their son excited for what Santa will bring. They're not expecting to actually see Santa, and their security alarm goes off once Santa comes through, and Santa, he gets busted. Yeah, huge butthole. If it's going to happen like that, it's going to happen about every other house. I know. But the sheriff who picks him up just happens to be very Scroogey and refuses to give Santa any acknowledgement and throws him into the pokey. But that little boy, they know who they picked up. That was Santa. And he sneaks out of his bedroom window to drive Santa's sleigh to the sheriff's office. He ties a rope to the window bars, and he has the reindeer go full power to pull on it to open a hole for Santa's escape. And it's a very fun chase ensues, and the right things happen to help the sheriff reawaken his long-lost Christmas spirit, as happens with every Scrooge character. Silly, but a lot of heartfelt fun. Number 4, Dukes of Hazzard, the Great Santa Claus Chase. So here in the first season of the Dukes of Hazzard, Bo and Luke Duke are transporting Christmas trees to Hazzard County, where a lot of people living there had prepaid for them. And they end up getting hijacked by thugs working under Boss Hogg's racket. So the plan is to have to sell the trees to those who originally paid for them, so they have to pay for them twice. So there he gets to pocket a lot of money. But the first thing the Dukes they try to do, they try to do the Christmas Carol. They see Boss Hogg as a Scrooge, and they try that they tap into Boss Hogg's radio, and on the outside they act as Scrooge ghosts. But that fizzles out when somebody calls in on their radio. And later, the same thugs Boss Hogg hired to hijack the trees, they come in and loot Boss Hogg's own safe, disguised as Santa Claus's. So it falls upon the Dukes and their friend Cooter, who had previously called in to mess up the Scrooge Ghosts act. They go out to regain the Christmas trees, and it all plays out beautifully. And they gain Boss Hogg's good graces by getting his stolen money back. And in the spirit of Christmas, a resolution shows a rare instance where Boss Hogg and Sheriff Roscoe P. Coltrane put aside their differences at the end with the Dukes in a well done fashion to join them for festivities for Christmas. Number 3, Twilight Zone, Night of the Meek. In my last video, I talked about the special, The Night They Saved Christmas, with Art Carney as Santa Claus. That wasn't Art Carney's first portrayal of Santa Claus, and so in this 1960 Twilight Zone episode, he plays a department store Santa whose whole world is crumbling around him, and he makes things worse for himself by self-medicating with booze. After causing a scene while playing Santa for the kids, he's fired and kicked out of the store. But just after that, he discovers a big bag nearby, and it turns out he can pull out whatever he desires from that bag. Now, we've all heard the adage of power or money corrupting people, or that it magnifies whatever goodness or badness had already been in them. And in this case, it magnifies this Santa's goodness that we just hadn't seen, and he goes around choosing to pull out whatever the kids and adults around him wish for. So definitely an inspiring story about choosing to magnify the good within ourselves when we gain money or a certain ability. And it's something to express our inner Scrooge. Number 2, Quantum Leap, A Little Miracle. So this will be the last Christmas Carol adaptation. But for those of you not familiar, in a nutshell, Quantum Leap was a time travel show where Sam Beckett, played by Scott Bakula, travels within his own lifetime, leaping into the bodies of different people and taking on their identities to fix events that had gone wrong. All the while, his friend Al, played by Dean Stockwell, helps him with from the present as a hologram with a gadget that he uses to calibrate data needed to figure out solutions to the problem. Different special things it can do come up here and there from episode to episode, so no surprise that happens later in this episode. But here, the Scrooge character is Michael G. Blake, an arrogant corporate raider, and Sam has leaped into the body of Michael Blake's butler. Blake's intentions are to tear down a homeless shelter to begin the construction of his big skyscraper. And this episode is self-aware of its Christmas Carol initiative because Sam says that they need to approach him like Scrooge by first taking him to his old neighborhood to remind him of his past as a homeless kid raised by his single mother. And this starts to soften him up until he learns of the tragic death of a childhood friend, and he goes home angry and even more determined to destroy the homeless shelter. And so Sam then delves into the present by bringing him into the homeless shelter, and he's touched by seeing what Salvation Army Captain Laura Downey is doing to help the homeless, but sensing that he's straddling between his feelings for the homeless and his corporate ambition, he gets up and he goes to his penthouse. He chews out Laura Downey for trying to set him up, trying to soften him up, but he's still determined to go forward. So of course that brings us to Christmas Future, and that scene is too fun to spoil, but it's well played out with the help of Al and his gadgets. And there's a cop-out that where they break the rules of how things work in this series, but it's justified in this case, and it all works out as the Christmas Carol adaptation should work out, and it's all done very well. Number 1, Happy Days. Guess who's coming to Christmas? So Generation Zers, for them, Happy Days, it's set in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It's something to get wooed over seeing Ron Howard during his acting days before becoming an acclaimed director. And if not in Happy Days as Richie Cunningham, it would be in Andy Griffith's show as O.P. Taylor. But we watch as Richie is all excited about spending time with his parents, his sister Joni, and soon to be phased out of the series, brother Chuck. And Richie's too cool friend, the Fonz, plays a game of one-upsmanship after learning about Richie's plans. Talk about his plans to take the big bus trip to Waukesha, Wisconsin, where there's a convention-sized party going on with oodles and oodles of Christmas food, all kinds of glitz to have fun with. But midway through the episode, Richie peeks through the door crack of Fonz's auto body shop to see him sitting at a small table, putting butter on a slice of bread and having that be his Christmas meal. And knowing how prideful Fonz can be, Richie persuades him to come over to his house for some fixing jobs that need to be done at the house, hoping that the made-up plans Fonz has to go to Waukesha eventually slip away, and that he will settle in for the evening with the Cunninghams, have a good Christmas evening festival. I won't outline the whole process, but that's what gives this episode that golden touch. And in the end, Fonz gets comfortable enough to be part of every family Christmas activity that night. So, that's the top 10 Christmas episodes. There have been so many TV series that there are so many that are probably as good. I'm sure there's something that come into memory of something I really loved before. and keep watching them. And they're just a lot of fun, and they make the Christmas season fun. They make Christmas season warm, all that. But if you like this video, please click like. If you like this channel, please click subscribe or follow me on Instagram. Thanks for watching, and the link to order Sledge number 1 is below the description, or you can order it on Kindle. Let's all look for civility among all the bad news out there about the pandemic, and follow the precautions that they give us to get this thing over with. But everybody be safe, and God bless.